Claire Donovan lived in Boulder, Colorado, a town cradled by the Flatirons, where the air snapped crisp and the mountains loomed like silent giants, and she spent 28 years married to Mark. At 54, in the golden blaze of September 2021, she broke free, not with a storm of fury, but with a quiet spark that refused to dim, a decision to chase a life she'd let slip through her fingers. They'd raised a daughter, owned a cedar-sided house near Chautauqua Park, and lived a steady rhythm of work and family that once felt like enough. She was an accountant, her days a blur of spreadsheets and tax codes, while he ran a hardware store, his world a jumble of nails and paint cans. By her 50s, that rhythm had slowed to a dull thud, their marriage a ledger balanced but empty. This is Claire's story, a bold leap from a life gone flat, a climb through fear and wonder, and a summit of joy by 57, set against the wild, rocky sweep of the Rockies. Claire met Mark in 1992 at a brewery on Pearl Street, both 26, both drawn to the clink of glasses and the hum of a Friday night crowd spilling onto the patio. She wore a sweater she'd picked from a thrift shop, her blonde hair pulled into a loose braid, sipping an IPA after a week of crunching numbers. He leaned against the bar, a stocky figure in a flannel shirt, a pint of stout in hand, his laugh loud from a day selling tools to weekend warriors. They talked, about the mountains glowing pink at dusk, about her love for order in chaos, about his knack for fixing what broke. He asked her out as the stars pricked the sky, and she said yes, her smile shy but warm. A year later, in October 1993, they married in a meadow near El Dorado Springs, her dress simple, his boots muddy, the wind carrying aspen leaves as friends toasted with mason jars of cider. She promised to keep their books straight, he vowed to mend their days. For years, they held that bargain tight. Their daughter, Mia, arrived in 1996, a wiry girl with Claire's sharp blue eyes and Mark's stubborn streak. Claire traded late-night audits for bedtime stories, her calculator swapped for picture books, her voice soft over tales of dragons and stars. Mark built Mia a swing in the backyard, his hammer steady, the cedar house filling with her giggles and the creak of rope. In 1998, they bought the place, a two-story home with a sloped roof, big windows framing the Flatirons, and a deck where they'd sip coffee as the sun climbed. Claire hung photos, family hikes, Mia's first steps, her office a nook of files and faded receipts. Mark stacked firewood, fixed leaks, his store's dust trailing home on his boots. They'd hike Bear Peak as a trio, Mia bounding ahead, the trail dusty under their soles, the air thin and bright. Money stretched lean, winters bit deep, but the house stood firm, a ledger of love and labor, the balance tipped slow. By her 40s, Claire felt the numbers blur. Mia left for Denver in 2015, studying biology, her room a time capsule of field guides and soccer cleats. The house stilled, its walls swallowing sound, the deck empty of chatter. Mark spent longer at the store, tinkering with inventory, his evenings quiet with a beer and the TV's drone, sports, Claire, just unwinding. She buried herself in tax season, her desk piled with forms, her nights lit by a screen's glow, the spark fading from her fingers. She'd try, let's hike Flagstaff, feel the air, or, how about dinner at the kitchen, but he'd grunt, too beat, maybe next weekend. They ate apart, slept apart, the mountains outside a reminder of paths untaken. By 2019, she took the guest room, its quilt a shield, the window framing peaks she longed to touch. The break flared in September 2021. Claire was 54, her hands cramped from years of keyboards, her blonde hair now streaked with silver she let fall free. She'd just filed a client's return, the numbers clicking into place, when she drove home through a sunset that set the Flatirons ablaze, gold, orange, a fire she hadn't felt in years. Mark sat in the den, a game flickering, his boots off, his silence thick. "I can't do this anymore," she said, her voice cutting the hum. He looked up, his face creased, his eyes dull. "Do what, Claire?" "This, us, it's gone." He rubbed his neck, nodded slow. Yeah, I see it too, we're spent. They sat on the deck, the air cooling, the mountains dark against the sky, and agreed, 28 years was a chapter closed. No shouting, no blame, just a balance sheet that wouldn't reconcile, a life to rewrite. Divorce at 54 was a cliff's edge. They sold the house, too vast, too heavy with yesterday, and split the profit clean. Mark moved to a condo near his store, surrounded by bolts and familiarity. Claire rented a cabin off Baseline Road, a small A-frame with pine walls, a loft bed, and a window-spilling mountain light. Mia called from Denver, "Mom, why now, what's wrong?" Claire faltered, "I needed more, sweetie, we both did." Friends split, some stayed with Mark, buying his hinges, others met her for wine at Frasca. The first year was a scramble. She worked freelance, her numbers steady but her spirit shaky, nights spent pacing the cabin, the wind howling through pines, a call she couldn't answer. She missed Mia's laugh, Mark's footsteps, the house's groan in a storm. Sleep came jagged, the cabin's quiet a weight she carried alone. A spark ignited in 2022. At 55, Claire joined a climbing gym, a whim after a client raved about it, her hands trading pens for chalk, gripping holds on a wall at the Boulder Rock Club. She stumbled, her arms weak from years at a desk, but she stayed, hooked on the pull, the stretch, the ache of reaching higher. The crowd was eclectic, retirees with wiry strength, a young guide, a divorcee named Sam who climbed with a grin and a rope coiled over his shoulder. They met thrice weekly, swapping tips over sweaty grips, the gym's hum a new pulse. Claire scaled her first route, a 5.8, her breath ragged, her hands raw, and stood at the top, the view a thrill she'd forgotten. She bought gear, shoes, a harness, her cabin now cluttered with carabiners and dreams. By 56, Claire was ascending. She sold her sedan, bought a truck, a dusty blue Tacoma with a bed for gear, and drove to El Dorado Canyon, her ropes rattling, the cliffs rising sheer and red. She wasn't fast, younger climbers zipped past, but speed didn't matter, height did, the rocks grit under her nails a song of her own. She started a journal, peaks and pages, writing about divorce, climbs, and the rush of thin air, her words sharp as the ridges she conquered. Clients read it, then strangers, folks in Fort Collins, Durango, a woman in Wyoming saying, "I'm climbing too." Mia visited, saw the gear strewn about, hugged her, "You're a badass, Mom, I'm in awe." Sam invited her to a campfire at Nederland, she went, the flames warm, the peaks dark, her laugh bright against the night. At 57, Claire stood tall. She cut accounting to part-time, guided newbie climbers at the gym, her voice steady as she taught knots and belays, her hands sure on the rope. She drove to Rocky Mountain National Park one crisp fall weekend, summit Long's Peak, 14,259 feet, her boots crunching snow, her chest heaving as she touched the sky. She wasn't rich, her cabin smelled of chalk and coffee, her truck rattled on dirt roads. She wasn't famed, her journal had 500 readers, her climb stayed local. But she was Claire, fearless, free, alive. Mark remarried in 2024, a clerk from his store, solid and kind. She smiled, he'd found his ground, she'd claimed the heights. Divorce at 54 pushed me off the edge, she writes now, her pen firm, her window framing peaks she'd tamed. It gave me wings to soar. Across America, from Boulder's crags to every wild stretch, people like Claire break away every day. Gray divorces aren't falls, they're flights. I'm Jordan Lane, and this is Gray Divorce Diaries. Claire's tale is real, raw, rugged, radiant. If it lifts you, subscribe. Every day, a new story, people like us, conquering heights after 50. You're not alone. Let's climb your peak together.